Hello everyone, this is Kona and thank you for tuning in to another video. I'm continuing my series of videos where I explore the similarities and differences of playstyle between a class from Team Fortress 2 and a hero from Overwatch that's inspired by that class. The Scout and Tracer have been in many of these comparisons ever since Overwatch was first announced, and it makes sense, right? By just looking at her, you can see that Tracer is Blizzard's version of the high mobility, squishy character in a class-based shooter. Now before I dive into the details, I would like to make something clear. I realize that the Scout from TF2 may share lots of similarities in playstyle with other heroes from Overwatch, such as Genji with his double jump and Reaper with his shotguns, but for now, I would like to focus on Tracer because it seems like her character as a whole was heavily inspired by the Scout. As mentioned before, both the Scout and Tracer are high mobility heroes at the cost of being very squishy. Their role on the team is somewhat similar, although the way they go about filling those roles and the tools that they have available are very different. The Scout and Tracer are both great at picking off enemies, at pestering the enemy, and... okay, I can't think of another P word, but if you do think of one, let me know. Now their general strategy is to try and flank the enemy and pick off any stragglers they feel that they can take one-on-one. And what's nice is that they can choose when to fight. They gotta fight on their terms. Now long-range snipers who are alone are perfect targets for them, and healers or medics who aren't paying attention or they don't have anyone protecting them is almost a game changer if you can get that pick off. They're both also very good at pestering the enemy, annoying the enemy to get their attention, so they have to choose whether to chase you down or to play the objective. Now, each has their own tools for being a nuisance, like the Scout with his bonk atomic punch and double jump, and Tracer with her blink and recall abilities. Now in TF2's casual matches where it's 12v12, distracting one or two enemies might not have too much of an impact depending on who's chasing you, but in the smaller 6v6 matches of Overwatch, sending one or two heroes just to deal with an annoying Tracer can have huge consequences. Now one thing to mention that's different is the use of Scouts for capping points or pushing the cart. He counts as two people when pushing the objective, which can be very handy for things like backcapping. Unfortunately, Overwatch doesn't have the ability to speed up taking an objective other than to just throw more of your teammates on there, but they sort of make up for that with these capture checkpoints so that you don't have to recap the entire point from scratch if your push fails. The damage output of these two characters are very high if they engage the enemy at the correct distance. The Scout does great at almost point-blank range to get those really juicy meat shots. Even though I've been playing FPS games with shotguns before playing TF2, I've never actually heard the term meat shot until I played the Scout. Now Scout is very good at burst damage, and generally strafing side to side can make hitting your shots a bit easier, but you can always try to, jump around while shooting if you want to be a little bit more evasive. He does require timing with your mouse clicks just to land those shots, simply because of the semi-automatic nature of the scatterguns and pistols. It might be possible to just hold down mouse 1 and line up your shots, but I think in general, you can do flick or twitch shooting with the Scout. In contrast, Tracer requires you to constantly track your target while holding down the mouse button. Her two fully automatic pulse pistols empties all 40 rounds very quickly, and like the Scout, her pistols have damage fall off over distance, so you want to be relatively close to your target for maximum effect. Now while TF2 has perfectly fair and balanced random crits, Overwatch has a headshot-based critical hit system that does twice the damage for headshots, with some exceptions. This means as Tracer, you can intentionally aim for the head if you need to finish off someone quickly. This can be very useful for taking out tanks, or at times when your enemies are immobilized and they're easy to hit, like when they're stuck in Zarya's ultimate. Also, since melee attacks come out pretty much instantly in Overwatch, you can use it to quickly finish off your opponent once you close that gap. Now if you're coming from TF2 and you enjoy playing the Scout, Tracer's pistols will probably feel a little weird at first. If you're looking for something that feels a little bit more similar, at least in terms of shooting, you can maybe try Reaper. He has the same sort of meat shot type of thing going on with his shotguns, and he does require flanking and positioning to be effective, sort of like the Scout, although you won't have his speed. The last topic I'd like to talk about is each character's mobility options. Now, even though they're supposed to be known as the fastest heroes in their respective games, the way they go about it is very different. In TF2, movement speed is generally compared to 100%, where 100% is chosen to be 300 in-game distance units or hammer units per second. The Engineer, Pyro, and Sniper all run at 100%. The Scout's default speed is 133%, which makes him significantly faster than all of the other classes, and his speed can be increased even more with weapons like the Babyface's Blaster. The Scout also has access to a double jump, allowing him to reach high places and to cross large gaps, and even the number of mid-air jumps can be increased with certain weapons like the Soda Popper, the Atomizer, and the Force of Nature. A Scout that uses all of his mobility options is very difficult to hit, especially when you start combining them with all these different weapons. Tracer, on the other hand, moves around very differently. Now, Overwatch doesn't really express speed in terms of percentage, but based on some tests people have done, almost all the heroes run at about 5.5 meters per second, while Tracer and Genji run at 6 meters per second. If, say, 5.5 meters per second is 100%, then Tracer runs at about 110% normal speed. But most of her speed actually comes from her abilities, her blink ability and her recall ability. Blink allows Tracer to dodge in and out of fights, making her very difficult to hit. It can also be used as a utility to cross gaps for flanking routes. Her recall ability allows her to travel very long distances and regain her health depending on what her status was a few seconds ago. Unfortunately, she's sort of landlocked or horizontally constrained in her movement. She doesn't have a double jump and she can't blink vertically by looking up, so her escape route usually isn't going to be jumping over a wall like Genji. Speaking of Genji, in terms of movement, I feel Genji feels most similar to the Scout from TF2. His double jump is very useful for dodging, and combined with his wall climb, he can be just as annoying to pin down as Tracer. So now I'm going to choose which one of these characters is my personal favorite to play, at least right now, and it's going to be Tracer. Now, shooting with her automatic pistols is very satisfying to me, even though it's taken me a while to get used to having to track my targets while shooting, rather than, twitch shooting with a scattergun. I do have to be a little bit more mindful about those abilities though, because Tracer is very, very reliant on those abilities, and she's very vulnerable when they're on cooldown. But even still, it's very fun to zip in and out of fights and almost have like a Spy's Dead Ringer as an ability. But what about you? If you play Team Fortress 2 in Overwatch, who do you like playing more, the Scout or Tracer? And I guess I'll ask this again, if these two were to fight, who would win? Let me know in the comments below. So I hope you enjoyed this video, thank you very much for watching, and have a great day.